Hi, my name is Arun John, a systems engineer for the Dell Data Protection Division. Today, I will take you through how to enable backup immutability with a periodic locking released in the Avamar 19.9 version. So let's get started. So in the 19.9 release of Avamar, we have introduced immutability through a feature called as periodic locking. Now, through periodic locking, you can define immutability at the backup level, both for your on-demand backup job and your scheduled backup jobs. The maximum locking period is 31 weeks. It is also important to understand that only the compliance flavor of a retention lock is supported with Avamar, meaning once you define a locking period for a backup job, that particular backup cannot be deleted or expired until its locking period is over. So when immutability is enabled with periodic locking, and there are three behaviors which we can control. The first one is the default behavior. In this behavior, no keys are set for periodic locking. That is, all backups gets locked until its retention period. So it's important to understand that this is the default behavior. So if you don't specify any keys in the Avamar UI, all the backups gets automatically locked until its retention period. The second one is a set lock time. Here you can define for how long you want to actually lock a particular backup job. And the last one is no lock, wherein you can define a key stating that you don't want to lock any backup, and therefore when you run that backup job, the backups are not immutable. So to enable immutability, we at a very high level need to follow three steps. Step one is to enable periodic locking on the Avamar side of the business by typing the following command. Then we move on to step two, which is on the data domain side of the business, and enable compliance lock by typing the following three commands. It's important to understand that in order to carry out step two, you must have created a user on the data domain system with a security role. And finally, on step three, what we do is we go to the Avamar user interface and define what type of behavior you want with the periodic locking, as we discussed in the previous slide. That is, either you want periodic locking for a set number of time, or you don't want any periodic locking. And finally, if you don't set up any of those keys, then automatically the default behavior kicks in, which is it'll lock all the backups until its expiration time. So for the purpose of the demo, what I've done in my lab is I've already followed step one, which is enabling periodic locking on the Avamar side. And I've also followed step two, which is enabling compliance lock on the data domain. In particular, I've enabled the Avamar M3 for compliance mode. So what we will do in the next step is step three. We will log on to the Avamar user interface, create some backup policies, and set up some keys for periodic locking and see what are the behaviors of those backups. So I've logged on to the Avamar UI, as you can see, and what we'll do is we will go ahead and create a quick backup policy. We'll give it a name. We'll pick up the client which we want to back up. So I'm going to pick up one of these machines. Say next. I'm going to create a new data set. I'm going to say test dataset. Let's select a plugin. This is where you define the keys, right? So under show free form, we go ahead and define the keys. Now at the moment there are no keys defined, so if you click on add, this is where you can actually add those keys in. So what I'm going to do is the first behavior is what I'm going to demonstrate here, wherein I have not added any keys. Therefore we know from our initial slides that if you don't add any keys, the default behavior is it needs to go ahead and lock the data until its expiration date. So that is what we will try and demonstrate here. So we'll click on next without adding any keys. So that is our immutability backup policy. So I'll go ahead and run that backup. So that backup is now completed. So what we'll do now is we will go ahead and try and see whether we can go ahead and delete that backup. So we go to asset management and pick up that client. So that was the Windows 10. You go ahead and click on view more, and that's the backup. So if everything goes as per plan, we should not be able to delete this backup. So let's go ahead and try that. We'll click on delete. As asking whether you really want to delete the data. We'll click on yes. And there you go. It says error occurred while deleting the backup, insufficient privileges. So again, this shows that if you don't put any keys within the periodic locking functionality of Avamar, it takes the default behavior, that is, it will not allow you to delete the data until its expiration period. So what we'll do next is we will go ahead and edit the backup policy by adding some keys so that it will enable us to go ahead and delete backups of that particular policy moving forward. So to do that, we go back to the backup policy and we click on immutability test, which is the backup policy. Click on edit. Click next. Pick up the client. Windows 10, which is our client. And what we'll do is we will go ahead and add a key which will enable us. So I need to edit this, sorry. We'll add a key which will enable us to delete the backup. So you're going to punch in the command avtar force no immutability lock, and the value is true. I'm going to say next, and say next, leave everything else as the default and click on finish. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and run that backup again. So I've kicked off that backup. So we'll come back to this once the backup is completed. So the backup now, as you can see, is completed. So what we'll do now is we'll go back to the asset management, pick up that client. You can see all its backup. So the backup which we are interested is this one, backup number 5. So if everything goes per plan, we should be able to delete this backup because we set the flag saying that we should be able to delete that. So let's go ahead and try that. We'll select that backup, making sure that it's the correct backup. Go ahead and say delete. So it's saying, are you sure you want to delete the backup? We say yes. And there you go, backup deleted successfully. So what we'll do next is we will try and see the third behavior, in which we go back to the backup policy, again edit the backup policy to add in a flag wherein we say we should be able to lock the data but for only a particular period of time. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we'll go back to the backup policy, select our favorite backup policy, which is immutability test. Click on edit, and what we're going to do is next, select our favorite client, and now we're going to edit this data set. So what we'll do is we will remove this flag and we'll add in 2 new flags. Our immulog weeks, and we define how many weeks we want the data or the backup to be immutable for. So we'll say 1 week here. So again, we added 2 keys or 2 flags. The first flag says immutability lock is true, and then the second flag is we define for how long we need to keep the data immutable for in weeks. So we said 1 week. So once that is done, we'll click on next, click on finish. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and rerun this backup again. So that backup has kicked off. We will wait until that completes. So as you can see, the backup is now completed. What we will do now is we will go ahead and try and see whether we can delete the backups. So again, we go back to asset management. We pick up our client. And view more. So that's the backup which we are interested in, backup number 6. We'll try and see whether we can delete it. So if everything goes as per plan, we should not be able to delete this particular backup, because we did set a flag saying that we need to retain this backup or lock this backup for 1 week. So let's go ahead and click delete. We'll say yes. There you go. It says you have insufficient privileges and you can't delete that backup. I'll try that once again because that went really quick. There you go. You can't delete that backup. So that concludes the demo. What I've shown here through this demo is the immutability feature within Avamar 19.9 and all the granularity which we can configure around immutability. Thank you for listening, and I hope you liked it.